Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Empowerment Project podcast by Andrea Bosco and Dr. Ray.
Hey everyone.
Of course, I am Andrea, and
And
you
I'm
just
Shar.
and you just heard Char. So this week we wanted to talk a little bit about our experience at the wellness center that we attended last week. So if you haven't listened to our last week's episode, I mean, it's not a requirement, but even if you take a look at some of the video clips that we put online, you'll see that we are actually together and we're in robes, and we were taking a little break from our self-care from the day to record the podcast because we were inspired and felt it was a great discussion around rest and how we need to prioritize rest in our lives. And so, great listen. And then today we thought we wanted to talk a little bit about why we decided to go to the wellness center and kind of what we got out of it, and just share a little bit of those tidbits. So the place that we went to is called Grail Springs, and it's about 2.5 hours from Toronto, probably even a little bit further for like downtown core, but it's in Bancroft, Ontario, just north of Peterborough. It's been around for almost 30 years, which I'm very impressed by. And it's owned by a lovely female entrepreneur. And I have to say, like, incredible human, because it was funny because a lot of people who heard I was going or who heard I had gone kept saying to me, "How was the spa?" And I'm like, "We didn't go to the spa." And I guess I had to make it very clear because in my mind, the spa is like, we're going for mani-pedis and we're going for massages and we're just like yeah, we're milling about and, doing that kind of physical pampering, which I have no qualms about and I think is a wonderful thing to do. Um, but this is definitely different than that. So the only services that Grail offers have to do with energy work and deeper wisdom about yourself on a deeper level. There are obviously physical things. There's walking trails, there's the cold plunge contrast therapy with sauna and hot tubs. Um, but otherwise, oh yeah, there's yoga classes. They're very gentle yoga classes. Otherwise,
You can
if you're
add coaching, Andrea. Remember, you can add coaching, and then I think they do have massage, but it's probably not what you would expect typically from a massage. I feel like there's
exactly.
a little bit more uh there's more energetic work attached to it.
Exactly. So, yeah, so there are those physical elements, but then on top of that, which is probably more prevalent, is the kind of mental, emotional, and spiritual work that you can decide to take part in or not, but it's available. So, um, we this is our second time there. This is our second time. We went for the very first time last year, same time of year in January. This January tends to be a slower month for us as we do work with a lot of schools, especially high schools. They're coming off of the Christmas break, they're going into exams. So, January is a great time for us to sort of take a few days off, reset. And the intention when we did it last year was to go in and kind of discuss our year, kind of set some really good intentions for what we wanted to accomplish last year in 2024. And it ended up being a really great year for us. And we thought, heck, let's make it a tradition. Let's go back. It was such a beautiful experience. And so we did. And I'll have to tell you, both experiences were different, but both incredible for different reasons. So, Shar, I'll let you get into sort of those differences in both of our experiences.
Yeah, I think the first time we went, Like we wanted to talk about business and, kind of do a reset and all that kind of stuff. At the same time, we still wanted to make sure that we were getting self-care in and really soaking in the experience. And so I think the time of year that we went was great, but the time during the week was also interesting because we
Mm.
were there over a weekend. So the the place was completely packed, right? So, and when I say packed, I think they only have,
They have 13
yeah,
rooms.
13 rooms and you can fit two people per room. So let's say there was a maximum of 26 people when we were there the first time. And I think last year represented for me, I think, and especially on my self-care journey, and I think for yours as well, Andrew, because we've talked about it and we've compared, but last year was very physical, tangible care. So, not just care with respect to the business, but care for ourselves. So, let me give you an example. When we sat and we spoke about our business, we decided that we wanted to set particular office hours, and we had number goals, and we had ideas of how to grow our business, and like it was very tangible, hardcore stuff. And then even with respect to the self-care that we did there, it was also very physical. Like we were there over a course of 2 nights and 3 days. So we walked the trail 3 days. We did the hot and cold plunges. We did the sauna, the dry sauna outside, and then we did the infrared sauna. We did the yoga classes, but it was very physical. And I think also like the hustle and bustle of the energy in there, like even though it was very manageable and calm, but the energy was very uplifting and exciting, if you will, right?
Mhm.
Now, so that was interesting because that is exactly what I felt we needed last year. We needed that physical, that tangible, that structured care for our business and for ourselves.
Mhm.
Now, this time when we went again, excuse me, for 3 days, 2 nights, but we went in the middle of the week and there were only 5 people there, including myself and Andrea.
Mhm.
And so it was very quiet and it was very relaxing. Like we kind of eased into this slow pace. And again, when we talk about self-care, Andrea and I didn't even feel like we wanted to do the same things together. Like Andrea would go for a yoga class and I wanted to go for for a walk on the trail. I felt like I needed to be a part of nature. Uh, even when we did some of the evening activities, I decided I didn't want to participate in one and I took a nap, and Andrea decided that, she wanted to be fully engaged in whatever this individual was speaking of. So we found that we needed to nurture ourselves very differently. Like it's okay if you want to do something different than me. And it's okay if you want to pay a little bit more attention to this and I want to focus on something else. So it was the care that we were giving us was more, it wasn't physical, it was what our soul and spirit kind of needed. And I think the same thing with when we even talked about the business. So this is, I think this was probably the real telltale sign of the kind of experience that we had. Because again, I don't think it matters where you want to grow in life. And Andrew and I kind of use this as an excuse uh, to also focus on the business. But again, it does not matter where you want to apply these things in your life. But one of the big business things, if you will, that we did was we shared with each other some of our limiting and competing beliefs with respect to the growth of the business. Now, I'm not going to share all of that with you because that was something that was very deeply personal for Andrea and I, and what we felt like we needed to overcome independently and together in order to create that growth in the business. But how about learning how to apply this stuff just generally in our life? So, for example, um, I'm going to preface this by saying that Andrea and I have been listening to these amazing podcasts. So this is, I think, one of the reasons why we decided to spark this conversation, because we have listened to so many different types of podcasts. And this one particular podcast that we were listening to discussed limiting and competing beliefs with respect to manifestation. And what we learned is limiting belief sort of circles around our worth and value and deserving of certain things. So that would be a limiting belief, like somewhere deep down inside, you don't deserve to have the perfect, the best job, or the greatest relationship, loving relationship, or a really good connection with your partner, or the greatest create. So that somewhere in the limiting belief, the deserving and the value and the worth that you put on yourself has attached itself to what now you're limiting yourself into receiving.
Mhm.
But what I found so interesting was the competing belief, because the
Mhm.
competing belief tells us that I want something and I desire something. However, if I desire this, it's going to take away from something else. So, this I think is okay to share business wise, because it was something that I think Andrew and I felt together. And I think it's a safe thing to say, because again, a lot of people might be feeling this way. So, I really want to grow the business. And I know Andrew really wants to grow the business. But if we grow the business, it's going to take time away from our family. So it was that competing belief, when in fact, we can have both, right?
Mhm.
We can, it might not always be in balance, but there is a beautiful harmony that can be created between growing a business and still being extremely integrated and a part and engaged with your family. So now even think about that from a self-care perspective, right? I really want to take care of myself, but I can't take time away from my family because they need me. And I know
Mhm.
that's a really big one for a lot of moms, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And again, okay, I'm sorry I'm saying moms, but maybe you're a parent, maybe you're a caregiver, maybe you're really trying to, carve place in a career path, and you just feel like you don't have time to take care of yourself that way. And that's a competing belief. Like, so it's going to stop us from creating the life that we want and manifesting these desires that we want in our life if we're constantly negating what we want with something else. So
Mhm.
I think that was probably our biggest um, takeaway from this particular time away, is that we needed to work on ourselves from a deeper rooted sort of spiritual soul level, and figure out what some of that I'm going to say garbage or toxicity that lives within us, that is preventing us from really leading the lives that we want.
Mhm.
Did
Yeah.
I miss anything?
No, not at all. Yeah. So that's exactly it. And so we had a really great time, and I think what sparked in me, and I think in you too, coming out of it, is this idea of manifestation and
Mhm.
how we can clear away a lot of our blocks, to allow for more manifestation to appear in our life. And I think that's something that a lot of people maybe have heard, but they haven't really understood it. And maybe you believe it, maybe you don't believe it, but we are constantly kind of creating our realities. And there's this idea of, destiny. And then there's this idea of, well, can I change my destiny? Right. And I think it's like both and, right? Like we've come to this earth and we have sort of a set path and somewhat of a destiny, but we still influence the experiences that we have all day long,
Mhm.
right? And whatever's meant for us is not going to miss us, right? We're going to receive what we are supposed to receive, and that's good and not so good, right? But how can we as individuals create a mindset, or in some of the information that we've been reading, almost like create a vessel. Like I really think visually. Like I have a visual brain that I literally think of like a tube that is like a vessel that's allowing things to come in or closing off things from coming in. And so how can we start to shift into a more abundant mindset, and a mindset to allow for that to come in? And that's not always easy because we have a lot of junk in there, right? We have, like we said, competing beliefs, limiting beliefs. When we've some of the examples, as you mentioned, about, taking time away from family if you work a little bit more, you want to start a business. And it's in other ways the same too, right? You know, deciding you want to hire more people at your job, but you believe that people don't care about your business. So anyone I hire, no one's going to care more than me, right? We hear this a lot too, especially entrepreneurs, single mompreneurs that have started their businesses from scratch. Like, yes, we understand you are the lifeblood of your business, but if you believe that everyone out there is just not going to give a crap about your business, so anyone you hire is just going to be surface level and whatnot, then that's the energy you're putting out there. That's the mindset that you have for them, rather than believing that you are going to attract the right employees for your business who are going to love and want to bring in as much abundance to it just as much as you do, right? So it's those shifts, and then checking in with people to be like, where are you at? Like, how do you feel about the business? And letting them understand that they're a part of it. It's not just being an employee, right? So that's like another kind of form of limiting belief. But like, maybe we can just talk a little bit more about this idea of manifestation in our lives. And when, sometimes we say to ourselves, oh, nothing ever works out for me, or, oh, here we go, like another bad luck, or blah, blah, blah. Again, that's limiting you. Just that mindset, just that language that we use versus, and Shar, I'll let you get into the best phrase that we have sort of taken out of what David Guillaume, and it's David Guillaume who we're referring to. So listen to his stuff. But when something happens, what do we say?
What a pleasure. It's pause and what a pleasure. So I really do feel like we need to give credit to Lewis Howes and his podcast, The School of Greatness. And I don't even know if people do this on podcasts, but I'm totally giving him props because
Yeah.
I think he has some of the most amazing guests on. And it was David Guillaume that he brought on. And David Guillaume is a practicing Kabbalist. Like he practices Kabbalah, which I have really gravitated towards because it is a spiritual way of living life. And so, okay, so what I'm going to say, like I know that you keep talking about the business aspect of it, but I want to let's bring it into real life, for example. So I think I think the reason why this conversation became so important for us to have is because, like Andrew was saying, when we talk about manifestation, and we're constantly throwing out phrases like, oh, I'm so dumb, or this is so, it's not going to work out for me. I'm going to be stuck in this position forever, or something happens and it goes not in the way that you expected it to go. What we've been learning is it possible for us to accept that the creator, source, God, the universe, whatever, higher energy, higher power, however you might want to phrase it, is it possible that they don't make mistakes? Which in
Mhm.
my eyes, I don't think they do, right? So if something doesn't go our way, is it possible for us to, you know, pause, say thank you? What am I supposed to learn from this? Because at the end of the day, if we're really all on this journey, then in order for us to be on this journey, there are going to be some roadblocks, but those roadblocks are designed specifically for us to bypass once we've learned the lesson. It's like up leveling in a video game. Like I don't like video games. I don't play them, but I remember from when I was younger, you'd pass one level and then you'd make it to the next. But you would figure out how to sort of and he uses the word opponent, but you figure out how to, overcome your opponent and then you get to the next level. So in life, is it possible that our opponent are these challenges that show up? Is it
Mhm.
possible for us to say, hey, what am I supposed to learn from this? Am I going to be, and he uses the word reactive a lot. And so is it possible that I can be less reactive or not reactive at all? And I know that's really hard. And that is like, training in itself. Like even with all the stuff that I've done, like I still find myself being very reactive to things.
Mhm.
But the fact that I've become aware, I've been able to retract. Like I'll be like, oh man. And then I'll be like, take a deep breath. Okay, I'm pausing. No, this is all happening for a good reason. What can I learn from this? What is it that I need to learn from this? How is it serving me so I can get past this lesson and over to the next level? So I think that that is huge. So not to feel bad when things don't turn out your way. Like another way that I've always heard it said is rejection is God's protection, right? So like if you are being rejected in a particular situation or an experience or in family, like there is something really beautiful that can come from understanding that you're being protected or guided to another path. Like learn what you need to learn and understand that it's all for good and then move on. So
Mhm.
it's that certainty, it's that trust, it's that faith, it's that trust that you have in whatever this higher power is, that they're showing you things that you need to see in order for you to, and what does he call it? He says build your vessel, right? So that vessel or your soul, or put more energy and light into your soul body, if you will, depending on how you want to look at it. But
Mhm.
I think that is really key when we talk about the whole manifestation thing, right? And my favorite part, again, I know I have so many favorite parts, but I love when he says that everything that we desire is easily accessible to us.
Mhm.
But if we don't have the ability to hold those gifts, they come and they go.
Mm.
So it's about, can we find a way to build that vessel big enough so we can hold those gifts and hang on to them, right? And
Mhm.
like I always think about the lottery, because we've heard so many times where people win this massive amount of money and then it's all gone. It just disappears.
Yeah.
But it's because they didn't have the capacity to hold that gift that they were given,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, and there's, like, deep-rooted belief systems
Yes.
around money, like, maybe
Yeah.
you were raised to believe that money is the root of all evil,
Mhm.
or, money comes and goes, and I need to spend it all, or whatever it is, and I know
Mhm.
money's a big thing for people, and
Yeah.
because I think in most cases, probably most of our listeners would probably want a little bit more money in their
Mhm.
life,
Mhm.
maybe a lot more money in their life. And, there's only so much you can do, especially if you work and have a set salary, and it's sort of like that's what you're going to get, right? And but even that's a limiting belief,
Mhm.
right? Like I remember one of my favorite mantras that I used to repeat, or affirmations that I used to repeat to myself, is that money flows to me from a variety of sources. And, every time I would get stuck in, like, because this was back when I was just starting my yoga business and teaching, and I'd be like, oh, I only have this many classes this week and this many students, so I'm only going to make this much. And I would try to catch myself and I would try to say, money comes to me from a variety of sources, because I knew that just limiting myself to that main stream of revenue was just going to give me that. Whereas if I open myself up to the possibility that there's other sources, hey, maybe I'd get a refund check from the government in, 1 week, or I'd, get a nice gift from a family member, whatever it was. But, you really do attract that. And having that little bit of awareness is huge, right? And we often say, write down your abundance story, like set your goals. And especially this time of year, the beginning of the year, and it's like set your goals and your intentions and your New Year's resolutions, or whatever you want to call it. But how often do we look at that list and we ask ourselves, okay, how much of this do I believe I can actually get, or that I can actually receive? And what parts of me are holding me back? What parts of me are limiting or competing the belief systems to allow me to receive all of this and more, right? And the other thing too with, manifestation and setting intentions is that a lot of times we do it and then we think, oh, it's got to happen at this time, you know. And in my spiritual practice, it's believed that, the universe, God, creator, doesn't have the same time as us, right? It's not like the calendar and the days of the week were not created by God. They were created by, you know, researchers and thinkers, and I don't know, but they weren't created by God's timeline is very different. It is, it is energetic. It is what it's supposed to be. And we can't cling to time, right? We can't cling to, oh, I got to achieve this by, the end of this year, or, in a month's time, or whatnot. You can set many goals for yourself, but when we cling a little bit too much to the outcome of things, that's when we start to build resentment and our faith dwindles, right? So manifestation is also putting things out there, knowing what your limitations are, switching that mindset a bit, but then leaving it, detaching from the outcome, and know that you are going to receive what you are meant to receive at the exact time you are meant to receive it.
Right. It's like the how and when is never, it's not our business.
Exactly.
Right. And so I heard someone use a really great example of like when you go to a restaurant and you decide that you want A, B, and C on the menu. I'd like this appetizer, I'd like this main, and I'd like this dessert. And then you give the order to the lovely waiter or waitress, and then off they go. But how it's being prepared and when it's going to be showing up for you is not none of your business. The order has been put in. But
Mhm.
then in the meantime, right? So this is now if we're talking about practicality, right? And how it looks like in our life, you're going to have some lessons along the way. Like now that you, and especially if you want to hang on to the desires that you've laid out, right? Like I want these certain things in my life. Okay, well, no problem. Okay, now that we've decided and you've decided that you're ready for this gift, there are certain obstacle. It's like an obstacle course. You're going to have to get through certain obstacles in order for you to hang on to what I'm about to give you.
Mhm.
So I think that's the thing. Like we become, and you know what? Reactive isn't like, oh my God, uh, some I can't find a parking spot close to the mall, or you know what, my Amazon order didn't come in on time and I needed it for this. I mean, that is reactive behavior, but I think it's really important also, and I know it's really important because again, this is something that we learned, is to pay attention to the way that you're responding to the people around you.
Mhm.
Like I did a really cool exercise yesterday, and it's funny because I think if I did this exercise any other time in my life, I probably would have wanted to throw up. Okay, so so just so everybody knows, and why I'm sharing this with you is because I decided to do the actual Kabbalah course that David Guillaume has available on his website, which is amazing because it's so practical. Like
Mhm.
it's so practical. It makes so much sense. It does not matter what religious background you come from. The practices are so powerful and they can enhance any part of your life, whether it's your religious beliefs, whether it's work and career or purpose, your relationships with yourself, your family, your relationships with money. Like it's really powerful. But so anyways, this exercise that I did yesterday, and it was called the phone call. And the phone call was um you have to call somebody right now. So this is in the class he's holding. You have to call somebody right now and you have to ask them to give you one negative trait about yourself. So one negative trait, and that is your golden opportunity to start transformation, right? So you have to call someone that you know that you love and you trust, and so I was like, okay, I thought about you calling
I
you,
was gonna
Andrea,
say, I'm
but
so glad you didn't call me.
but you know what? I think that if you sat with it, you would have been able to find stuff about me, especially after our conversation this past weekend.
Mhm.
I think you, because this is the thing, we're not perfect. And, even though you and I are in sync, I'm going to say, 99% of the time, there's probably that 1% of the time where we feel like maybe our something is being triggered in us that is making us uncomfortable being in front of one another.
Yeah.
So, okay, but yeah, I did think about calling you. But then I thought to myself, okay, you know what? Charity starts from home. That's saying charity. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to ask people in my family. Okay. So my
Oh, I'm
first,
sure they didn't hold back.
well, you know what was really
My family wouldn't
interesting?
hold back.
Well, but you know what was so interesting is my first victim was Justin. So my son, right?
Your youngest
And
son,
yeah, my youngest son.
youngest child.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm probably gonna get the least from him because I could do no wrong in his eyes, right? So silly me, because I asked him, um, and I said, listen, I'm asking you this, but I'm not asking you because I'm going to be upset with you. I'm doing I'm working through this spiritual workshop, and this is one thing that I've been asked to do to help me progress in my spiritual practices, and how to become more spiritual and be a better version of myself, transform, whatever I said to him at that time. And he's like, okay. And I said, do you need a piece of paper and a pen? And he's like, no, just give me your phone and I'll type them in. And I said, okay. So I actually had to step out of the car. I was picking up him from school. So I had to step out of the car and I needed to go get something. And when I came back, he had a list. Now, the list wasn't long, but, when I looked at that list, I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. I said, okay, tell me about micromanaging. So micromanaging and controlling. So this is what he said to me. I said, okay, tell me about that. Where do you find that is happening at home, in our life and in our relationship? And he was amazing. Like he was like, okay, well, listen, I know that when I come home from school, I have to empty the dishwasher. Why do you have to remind me 1,000 times every time I come home that I need to do it? I'm like, oh, okay, that's good. He's like, I know that's my job. I know it's something I have to do, but you're constantly like telling me to do. Okay. The next thing, I know I have to get my lunchbox and my snacks and my water bottle and all that ready. But why do you have to keep telling me? I know. And I'm like, okay, that's fair. And then the other thing that he said to me, which was really interesting. So like, I have to tell you, I surprised myself a little bit yesterday because I was so open to the learning.
Hmm.
I was so grateful and appreciative because uh, I do it because I feel like in order to make my life easier and I'm not stressed, I need to make sure things are done in a chronological order.
Hmm.
Whereas I have to let go and go with the flow a little bit, right? Like, and just
Hmm.
trust that my kids are smart enough to do what I've asked them to do, right?
Hmm.
I've raised them well enough that they can do what I'm asking them to do. So I was very proud of myself. I took everything really, like, I want to say
Constructively.
not to heart, like
Yeah.
it wasn't hard, but it was like, oh, I was so open to receiving this information. But then the other one, which I thought was really, really good, was he said that you don't understand when we need space and time away from you or from anybody else, especially when we're processing things. And he's so right, because they'll come in, they'll have a weird, a sad look on their face, or they'll be mad, and they'll be like, oh my god, what's wrong, what happened, talk to me, tell me what's going on. And so it's my way of, oh my god, I can't have you feeling sad and upset. I need to make sure that you're feeling good, so I need to help you work through that problem. And when I tell you, I have been doing that my entire life with my family before I had my own family. And my son is telling me that I'm doing exactly the same thing at home. I was like, oh my God. And I said a few curse words in my head, going, wow, like, in such, like, I can't believe that you have been paying this close attention to me. Like,
Wow.
I was in awe. So so that was Justin. And when I tell you how grateful I was to receive this information, I decided to ask Alicia, now my oldest. So I said, I asked Justin these questions. You are not going to be judged, or I'm not going to hate you. I'm not going to be mad at you,
Mhm.
but I need to know these things. And do you know that she said exactly the same things as Justin?
Yeah.
She said it. So I still have to ask Kiana, and I still have to ask Lance. Well, I asked Lance this morning. He's like, that you're like, this is a trick question. Like, he's like, what do you mean? You want me to tell you? So you can tell me that it's not you, but it's actually me, that I'm the problem? I'm like, no. He's like, are you kidding me? Like, he's like, I'm not doing it. And I'm like, no, this is going to help our relationship. I asked Justin and I asked Alicia, and it was so good. Like, but he's so hesitant. He's like walking on eggshells
It's
right
like
now,
that
going, oh my
question where
God.
you ask, like, "Do you think I need to lose weight?" It's like a
Yeah,
trick
exactly.
question for husbands.
So, anyways, so I've proposed a question to him. Let's see what happens,
Yeah.
what he comes up with. I said, it just has to be one. And Kiana, I had to ask
Just
one, you know, um, and because I think it's going to be hard for him. He's going to feel like he needs to be careful because of the way that I've reacted in the past.
yeah,
Like, what do you mean that's my problem? That's not my problem. That's your problem. And these are the arguments that we've had back
of
and forth, like
course.
that reactive behavior.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
Wow,
I,
that's really
anyway,
good. Almost feel that's like a whole podcast. Like, we each go back to our families, we ask them that question, then we come back and we share it with everybody and be
okay,
really
let's do that.
vulnerable and, maybe inspire others to do the same, because you're right, it is a very deep spiritual practice or self-development practice to be open and honest about our flaws,
Mhm.
right? And then, even like you said, Justin was telling you stuff that you noticed a pattern in your whole life. Like, you've
Oh
done
my
this with
gosh.
people, from when you were born. So again, it opens us up to understanding where those habits and behavior systems have come from, so that we can start to adjust and just simply be more aware. It doesn't mean that we're going to stop doing that forever, because it takes time, but at least we can be a little bit aware and be like, oh, I see I'm doing that thing again, right? Okay, let me backtrack. But no, that's good. I don't. I'm not going to say I'll enjoy that because I don't take criticism well.
Mhm.
But I'm pretty sure it would be a big eye opener for real. And maybe our listeners can do the same, and we will come back and you can share them with us online, or reach out if you know us personally, because we would love to share them. We could share them anonymously. And because listen, we're all in this together, and we're all just trying to do the best we can and manifest the lives that we truly want and deserve, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great note to close the podcast. And yeah, let's definitely do that. Like, I'm gonna ask Kiana and Lance. So you guys know Alicia and Justin have the same response, but I'm gonna ask
So
Lance
what's
as
the
to
question again that you asked them?
one negative thing about me that you think I need to change.
Okay.
That or that bothers you about me.
Okay. Got it.
And Andrea, you know what? Again, and I'm going to say this to you, and I'm going to say this to everybody else. If you are open to doing this, just know that this has been divinely designed by God, the creator, universe, source, higher power, whatever you want to call it, to help us move along our journey. And again, I really want to give credit to Lewis Howes and David Guillaume for like powerful messaging that we learned through this podcast. Like, really, I am so grateful for what I've been able to learn just through this entire process. So it's been amazing.
Yeah, I 100% agree. So we will leave it at this. Let's call this part one.
Yeah.
We're going to come back for part two, where we're going to share what our family has to say. Shar will just share her other family members,
Mhm.
and I'll do the same. And we'll have a great discussion on that, maybe inspire you all to do the same.
Okay. So that sounds
So,
great.
yeah. So thank you everyone for listening. We hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll be back soon.
See you later.